A whopping 33 tips in only 19 minutes. The first one is, make sure you like this video so you can find it easily in future to refer back to all these amazing tips. To swerve the cue ball, jack the cue about 45 degrees up in the air, you aim about 3/4 of the way across the ball and about half the way down. Just like that. Okay, we want to pot that ball there and get position on our last ball here. How do you do it? You probably think that you put top right hand side on it, but this happens. To get more side on the cue ball, you actually want to hit it in the bottom right and quite soft. Perfect. I'm going to play 2 shots, I'm going to hit them the same speed, and I'm going to hit the cue ball in the same position. But watch how much more action I get on one of them, because there's one key difference. Do you know what it is? Always remember to pause. How much of this great little game is in the mind? Well, let me ask you this question. We're snookered on the 9 ball. Can you tell me, is it easier to escape this snooker on the 9 ball? Or is it easier to get the cue ball to go over that piece of paper? Now, the answer is they're the exact same size target. If you think about it, when I was snookered down there, I could hit the 9 ball full in the face, or I could hit the extreme edges of it. That's the same as aiming for this piece of paper. Now, if you think about it, when you're snookered down there, making contact with that little 9 ball might seem quite difficult. If you think about it, that you're aiming for 3 balls, seems a lot easier, doesn't it? Cue sports are difficult, and every good player that you've seen, the first time they picked up a cue, they were absolute rubbish. Now, there's a lot of good advice on YouTube now how to get better at that game, but none of it is geared towards people who are picking up that cue for the first time. You probably hear a lot of terminology that you're not familiar with. You're almost told how to run before you can walk. If you're just starting out at this game, then just line up the object balls like this and pot them into a pocket. This is going to help you learn how to aim, and it's going to help you learn how to cue straight. Those are the 2 most important things that you need to learn when you first start out this game. Okay, it's important to find your centre of vision when you're playing pool, as that's the position that you want to cue from. A lot of people will put the cue right under their nose, but that's not the best place to aim. Your centre of vision tends to be a point between your nose and your dominant eye. To find your centre of vision, you want to get a straight line, such as a bog line, put your cue above it, and then put your head on it so that your cue looks exactly above that line. Wherever your head is placed, that's your centre of vision. Another tip for you now when it comes to snookers, and this is about thinking what part of the ball you want to make contact with. Now, as an example, if I try and hit this ball and misjudge it slightly on this side, I've got no chance of contacting that 9 ball. Now, if I err on the side of caution and aim for this side of the 9 ball, like this, then I can miss the shot but get it off the second cushion. Now, that makes that shot a lot easier, and there's a few examples of this. Okay, here's another example of how to miss a snooker. If we miss it on this side, then we can't possibly hit it. If we miss it on the near side, then we've got another chance when it hits the second cushion. How many times do you get a shot like this where you've got a thin cut and it just seems inevitable that the cue ball's going to go in off? To avoid it, you try and put backspin on it, but this happens. Because this shot is so thin, the cue ball skids after it makes contact with the object ball. So to get that backspin to kick in sooner, you actually need to hit it quite soft. Just like that. Here's a little trick to keep your tip in a nice shape. You know, as you play the game, as you hit shots hard, your tip is going to get squashed and it's going to get bent out of shape. To avoid that happening as much, or to reduce the effects of it, you want to burnish the outside edge of your tip. Now, what burnishing means is it's the act of polishing leather. And if you do it, it creates this shine over the tip. But what it does is it makes it really, really hard. So it keeps your tip in shape a lot better. Now, a little tip that shows anyone who's had a misspent childhood. You can buy a specific burnishing tool for about 10, 15 bucks, or you can get a beer mat out your pub. It does the exact same job. Just put it on the edge of your tip and just keep rotating that. What it's doing is it's polishing your tip and hardening it up. This is a funny little angle to be at, isn't it? But did you notice the plaster under my chin? Don't worry, I've not cut myself shaving because I've not shaved since about 1998. I've put it there because, do you remember I spoke about your centre of vision and finding that? Well, if you've played from a different position from your centre of vision, it can be tricky to remember where that centre of vision is. But if you put a plaster under your chin and use that as a guide for your cue, then you can actually feel where your centre of vision should be. Aiming at the centre of the pocket gives you a little leeway both left and right if you're not entirely accurate with your shot. So if you hit it in the centre, you'll pot the ball. If you hit it slightly to the left, you'll still pot the ball. And if you hit it slightly to the right, you'll also pot the ball. But there are some shots that the centre of the pocket isn't actually the centre of the pocket. Let me show you. Okay, for shots down the cushion, the centre of the pocket is there. If I hit slightly to the right, I miss the shot. So instead of aiming for the centre of the pocket, which is there, aim slightly to the left, which is there. That means if you now hit it slightly to the right, you're still going to pot that ball. But also, if you hit it slightly to the left, you're also going to pot it. The centre of a pocket on the middle pocket is also a bit different. If we say the centre is here, then if we hit slightly left and hit the knuckle, then we don't pot that shot. What you want to do instead is aim slightly right. Now, there's a big part of the pocket shown there, and you can actually aim quite far right, and it should still drop if you hit it soft enough, because gravity will take over. Did you know that a little side goes a long way? If I've got a shot like this and I want to play it with side, then I'm playing it with top extreme side like this. Now, if I put a touch of side on this ball, so I'm talking like 0.5 millimetre off centre ball striking, then you can see I've got the cue ball to there, which is almost as much as the extreme side example. Now, if I finally play this plain ball, so no side at all, you can see I'm hitting about here on the cushion, so I get a lot of side with just 0.5 millimetre. When I play a shot, this back arm should be straight in line with my cue. Now, the reason for doing that is it makes it easier to pull that cue back and push it through in a straight line. If my elbow is pointing out the way like that, then the natural way my hand wants to go is out that way. If I tuck my elbow in this way, the natural position of my hand wants to take the cue that way. Neither of those ways is going to make you cue through the ball straight. So you want this arm straight in line with your cue. To check to see if your back arm is straight, then you can put a mirror on top of a table. It doesn't have to be a pool table, it could be your dining room table, and just get down as if you're playing a shot and see what position it's in. Or, like me, you can put your phone on your table and check in real time how it's looking. Very nice, Dave. We've all done this, haven't we? We've got a difficult pot, the cue ball's near the cushion. We're going to try and give it as much chance as possible to get in the pocket, so we hit it quite soft. And we miss it. What you want to do instead is hit every single shot with authority. If you hit this one with more confidence and more conviction, then you will pot more of them. I'm sure you're all aware of the parallel shift system, but hands up if you have trouble, like I do, transferring the angle to the cue ball. Sometimes I don't do it right and I miss a shot. Well, there's another way to do it if the balls are fairly close together. So I've calculated the midpoint here, which is a chalk. What I like to do is just look at the size of the gap between the chalk and the cue ball. I can visualise that much better than I can transferring an angle. So let's take that gap and measure it from the centre of the pocket to the cushion. So that's probably about there. So if I aim at that point, then I should hit the object ball. The distance between your hands should never really change when you're holding the cue, but when you're faced with a pot on the cushion, your bridge hand gets much closer to the cue ball. That means the distance between your bridge hand and your backhand is extended. To compensate for that, bring this hand further down the cushion, and that gives you more control over the cue, which should mean that you pot more of these shots. Okay, so you've got a plan and it's not quite in line for the pockets. What do? You come round and you see where you need to contact that ball to pot the second one. But then when you come round here, it's difficult to judge where you were just aiming at. What you can do instead is line that up again and find something over here that you can visually aim that ball at. That could be something on the wall, it could be something on another table, or, let me know if this is legal, it could be a chalk. Have you ever felt under pressure in a frame and then done this? You kind of look at things, you take your time, you walk a little slower, you maybe play a negative shot, you get down in the shot, you seem to play in slow motion and you hit things softer. Do you know what else that does? The guy who's watching you can see that, and if he can see that you're under pressure, it gives him a bit of confidence. So even if you're feeling under pressure, don't show it. Walk around the table with purpose, look like you know what you're doing, look confident, and do you know what? You might actually start to feel confident. So always, always, always look confident when you're coming to the table. I'm sure you've seen one of those videos where they suggest aiming into an empty bottle to help make your cue straighter. But to me, that's not the best method to do it. Firstly, you're probably bored after about 10 seconds. And secondly, you're not really getting instant feedback as to whether you're actually doing it properly. Let me show you a better method. I think this method is much better as it's a lot less boring. You're actually hitting a cue ball instead of a glass bottle, which is an obvious benefit, and you're getting instant feedback. So what you do is I've actually placed the chalk right in the middle of the table just to give you a frame of reference as to what I'm aiming at. If you aim at that chalk, hit it straight up and down and get it back to you like that, it means that you've cued through the ball straight. Keep trying that, see if you can get 10 in a row. If you cue a fraction off straight, look at that. That was probably about a millimetre I aimed to the left, and you can see I got nowhere near my cue. Another thing that some people do when they're not 100% confident is they change their style of play. Rather than playing their natural game, they start to become more defensive. They'll play more defensive shots. They take less risk. It's almost like you try not to lose rather than try to win. But that's the wrong approach. Even if you don't feel confident, so much of the pool game is up here rather than here. So play your natural game, play your natural shot, be aggressive, be positive, and it might just work. It might not be the most fun thing to do, but to get better at this game, you should really practice your weak shots. Mine are bank shots, so sometimes I'll line up all the balls down the cushion and try and make as many as I can. I need to practice. Who remembers the old world rules when you used to be able to do this to snooker someone? Now that is a rubbish shot and it requires absolutely no skill at all. Thankfully, hardly anyone plays world rules anymore, but you can still play a similar shot if you hit the cue ball off the cushion. This is allowed in Blackball and international rules. So you can do this to snooker someone. Now it's still a tricky little shot, and a lot of people end up doing this and getting it completely wrong. To judge the pace properly, or to give yourself more chance of doing it, what you want to do is bring your bridge hand right up close to the ball, so you're right up there. This is getting you closer to it, it's going to give you more feel, but this backhand should come right down the cue. It's going to shorten the length between your bridge hand and your backhand, and it's going to make it a lot easier to judge. Always, always, always stand behind the object ball before playing the shot. You may have heard the term timing in pool, and it's actually a really, really important thing, which I cover in one of my member-only videos. But to help get good timing, get down on a shot and look at your back arm. Now, you want to have your back arm in what I call a neutral position. If you look at my back arm just now, it should roughly be about a 90-degree angle in here. That would be a neutral position. If your hand is too far forward, it's going to affect your timing, and if it's too far back, you might get more power on the shot, but again, it's probably going to give you poor timing. So to get good timing, keep your hand in a neutral position. Getting a consistent technique is important no matter what level of player that you are. But for those of you who are first starting out, you probably change things almost every single shot, and that's no good in the long run. You will improve a lot quicker if you can become more consistent. One way to do that is to put a little bit of tape around your cue where you should be holding it. That gives you a feel for where it should be held on every single shot. And then up the other end, you can see I've put a little pencil mark around there. So that means if I've got the pencil mark here and I've got the tape here, I'm holding the cue the same way on every shot. And don't worry, neither of these things do any damage to your cue. You can actually take this off just with a damp cloth. If you've got a ball that's slightly off the cushion, then you can bank it from just about anywhere on the table. But if it's touching the cushion, then it's almost impossible to bank it from this side without getting a double kiss. So if it's touching that cushion and you want to bank it, then you need to get position down this side of the table so you're cutting it back into this pocket. Can you hear me back there? The cue ball is in an absolutely horrible position here, but I've got a dead straight pot, so I should be able to pot it, right? I didn't expect to do that. Let's assume that I missed that shot for a second. The point I was going to make is that that object ball becomes a bit of a distraction when you've got a straight shot. Take the object ball out of the way and aim that cue ball at the pocket, and I bet you would never miss it. I've actually given this piece of advice before, but I'm going to add an extra tip on top of it now. So rather than aim at the object ball when you've got a dead straight pot, you can aim the cue ball into the pocket and you should pot it. Just like that. Another way that you can do it is rather than aim the cue ball at the pocket, you could aim your cue at the pocket. And you should pot it. Or you can simply aim at the object ball. Sometimes a treble is easier than a double. Now if I try and bank this, I'm playing from quite a wide angle to make it into this pocket. It might be easier to play the treble because it means that I'm trying to contact about there, which means I've got a much narrower angle to come into this pocket from, and I can see more of the pocket. Okay, how do you judge this one? If you send the cue ball towards that pocket, there's a chance it'll rattle in the jaws and head towards that one. But if you hit too wide, then you don't get near the shot. If you hit too close to the pocket, you look silly. What to do instead is aim for the near knuckle, as you won't pot the cue ball and it gives you a much bigger margin of error. You've probably heard about the importance of alignment, and a little tip on how to check if you've got good alignment is to get down in a shot and look at your backhand. Now if your backhand and your cue is over your back foot, then that's a great start to getting good alignment. Now there are so many more parts to getting perfect alignment, and if you want to know more about them, then click the video on screen just now. And also thanks to everyone who is a member of my Buy Me a Coffee page. I really appreciate your support.